Earth in 2157 was not the same planet it had been a century before. Humans had finally learned to work together. Wars were a thing of the past. The planet was healing. People lived in peace. This was the golden age of space exploration. Captain Noah Garcia stood on the bridge of the U.S. Horizon. The ship was humanity's pride, built to explore the farthest reaches of the solar system. Noah was tall with dark hair that was starting to gray at the temples. He had been in space for most of his adult life. "Captain, you should see this," called Linda Powell, the ship's science officer. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "These readings don't make sense." Noah walked over to her station. Linda had been the top student in her class at the Space Academy. If something confused her, it was worth his attention. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "Debris, sir, at the edge of our solar system, but it's not natural." Linda pushed her glasses up on her nose. "The material is unlike anything in our databases." Noah frowned. "Could it be from one of our old probes?" "No, sir. The technology is far beyond what we can make." Linda's voice was quiet but firm. Noah called over to Kevin Wright, their communications specialist. Kevin was young but brilliant with patterns and signals. "Wright, can you run a scan for any transmissions from that sector?" Kevin nodded and got to work. The bridge was silent except for the soft beeping of machines. After several minutes, Kevin stood up straight. "Captain, there's something there." A repeating signal. His face was pale. I think it's a warning." Over the next 3 days, the crew of the Horizon worked without rest. They collected pieces of the strange debris. They studied the signal. Slowly, a terrible story came together. The debris had once been part of a great civilization. A people called the Zentari had built ships that could cross galaxies. They had created cities that floated among the stars. And then something had destroyed them. They called it the Void, Kevin explained to Noah and Linda in the ship's meeting room. "From what I can translate, it's some kind of living darkness. It moves through space, consuming worlds." Linda's hands shook slightly as she showed them her findings. The molecular structure of these materials shows signs of digestion. Something ate through solid metal like it was food. Noah looked at the star map on the wall. "How long ago did this happen?" "The signal has been repeating for about 50 years, Kevin said. "But before the Zentari were destroyed, they received similar warnings from other species. This void, has been moving through the galaxy for a very long time." Noah was about to respond when the ship's alarms began to sound. He rushed back to the bridge with Linda and Kevin right behind him. "Report," he ordered. The sensor officer looked up with fear in his eyes. "Massive energy readings, sir, coming from beyond Pluto. It's huge." On the main screen, they watched as a darkness appeared at the edge of their sensor range. It wasn't just black. It seemed to swallow the light around it. Stars disappeared as it moved. "Is that?" Linda couldn't finish her question. Noah nodded slowly. "I think we found the void. Or it's found us." The darkness moved closer. It didn't travel like a ship or an asteroid. It flowed like water, spreading out and then pulling together again. As it came nearer, Noah felt a strange heaviness in his chest, a feeling of dread that wasn't normal. "Everyone listen," Noah said, his voice steady despite the fear he felt. "We need to get this information back to Earth. Right now. Prepare for emergency jump to light speed." As the crew rushed to their stations, Noah looked once more at the approaching darkness. Whatever this thing was, humanity needed to know about it. They needed to prepare. The U.S. Horizon turned and accelerated away from the void, racing to warn Earth of the danger that was coming for them all. The U.S. Horizon raced back to Earth, pushing its engines beyond safe limits. Captain Noah Garcia paced the bridge, checking the rear sensors every few minutes. The void was following them, but slowly. They still had time. 3 days later, the Horizon docked at Earth's main space station. Noah and his crew were immediately taken to meet with Admiral Richard Carter, the head of Earth's defense forces. The admiral was an older man with a serious face and eyes that had seen many challenges. "You're telling me there's a living shadow coming to our planet?" Admiral Carter asked after hearing their report. "Yes, sir. We have the data to prove it," Noah said. He played the recordings they had made of the void. Admiral Carter's face grew pale as he watched. "How long do we have?" "A week. Maybe 2, Linda Powell answered. "It doesn't move very fast, but it doesn't stop either." The admiral stood up. "I'm mobilizing the entire fleet. Every ship we have will form a defensive line at the edge of our system." While the military prepared, Dr. Samantha Daniels was called in to study the void. Dr. Daniels was the best xenobiologist on Earth, an expert on alien life forms. She spent days looking at the data from the horizon. "It's not just a physical threat," she explained to a room full of world leaders. "The void seems to feed on emotions, specifically fear and despair. It makes its victims feel hopeless before it consumes them." One of the leaders raised her hand. "Can we talk to it? Try to make peace?" Noah exchanged glances with Dr. Daniels. They had discussed this already. "We can try," he said, "but the signals we found from other species suggest they tried too." None succeeded. Despite the warnings, Earth sent out a peace mission. 5 ships approached the void with messages of friendship in every known language and format. Everyone on Earth watched the live broadcast with hope. What happened next shocked the world. The 5 ships reported overwhelming feelings of dread as they approached. Then, without warning, the void surged forward. It engulfed not just the ships, but also Earth's lunar colony. In less than an hour, 50,000 people were gone. The survivors described the same thing: a crushing feeling of fear that made them unable to move or think clearly before the darkness came. Earth was in panic. The fleet moved into position, but everyone wondered if they could really stop something like the void. Then the first alien ships arrived. They came in small vessels, clearly designed to hide rather than fight. Their leader was a tall, blue-skinned being who called himself Ambassador Zephyr of the Alarian Confederation. "We have been watching your world," Zephyr told the Emergency Council. "We saw you discover the void. We had to come. Are you here to help us fight?" Admiral Carter asked. Zephyr made a sound like sad laughter. "Fight? No one fights the void. We run. We hide. We survive if we can." The alien explained that thousands of civilizations across the galaxy had been destroyed by the void. The surviving species lived in constant fear, hiding in remote systems, never staying in one place too long. "How long has this been happening?" Dr. Daniels asked. "Longer than any of our history's record," Zephyr said. "The oldest among us have stories from hundreds of thousands of years ago. The void has always been there, and the galaxy has always feared it." The council room grew quiet as everyone realized what this meant. Humanity wasn't facing a new threat. They were facing an ancient horror that had never been defeated. Admiral Carter finally broke the silence. "Well, there's a first time for everything." Zephyr looked confused. "You don't understand. You cannot win." "Maybe no one has won yet," Noah said, "but that doesn't mean it's impossible." As the meeting continued, more reports came in. The void had stopped advancing after consuming the lunar colony. It seemed to be resting, gathering strength for its next attack. Earth had a little time, and humans were already thinking of ways to fight back. While Ambassador Zephyr and the other aliens advised Earth to evacuate as many people as possible, human leaders gathered to discuss a different plan. They met in a secure room deep under the old United Nations building in New York. "Running is not an option," said President Grace Allen. "Earth is our home. We will not abandon it." The room was filled with the most brilliant minds from around the world. Scientists, military leaders, and government officials all sat together, united by the threat facing them. Chief Engineer Maria Hernandez stood up to present her findings. She was a small woman with fierce eyes and hands that never stopped moving when she talked. "We've been studying the brain waves of people who survived the lunar colony attack. Look at these patterns." On the big screen, she showed two different brain scans. This first one shows a normal human experiencing fear. The second shows a test subject we asked to focus on courage and hope while watching footage of the void. The patterns were completely different. The fear scan showed chaotic, jumbled waves. The courage scan showed strong, steady patterns. Dr. John Peterson, a military psychologist with gray hair and kind eyes, explained further. "We believe the void feeds on fear. That's why people feel such dread before it attacks. It's literally drinking their fear. But when faced with courage, it seems confused. It doesn't know how to process those emotions." "Are you suggesting we can fight it with good feelings?" Admiral Carter asked, sounding skeptical. "Not exactly," Maria said. "We're suggesting we can disrupt its feeding pattern. Think of it like food poisoning for the void." Over the next few days, Maria and her team worked day and night to build what they called courage amplifiers. These were devices that could strengthen and broadcast the brain waves produced when humans felt brave and hopeful. Commander Peter Walsh volunteered to lead the first test squadron. He was a pilot with a reputation for being unnaturally calm in dangerous situations. His team of 12 pilots went through special mental training with Dr. Peterson to help them resist the fear effect of the void. "You won't be fearless," Dr. Peterson told them during their final session. "That's not the goal. The goal is to acknowledge your fear, but choose courage anyway. That's what creates the brainwave pattern we need." 2 days later, Walsh's squadron launched. Each pilot wore a courage amplifier connected to their neural implants. Earth watched and waited. The void was moving again, heading toward Mars where a small research base was located. Walsh's team intercepted it halfway there. "Contact in 30 seconds, Walsh reported calmly. "Everyone, remember your training. Feel what you feel, but choose courage." The pilots repeated a phrase they had practiced. "I see you, fear, but I choose courage." When they entered the edge of the void, something unexpected happened. Instead of the overwhelming dread reported by previous encounters, the pilots felt only a mild uneasiness. Their courage amplifiers glowed bright blue on their control panels. "It's working," one pilot shouted. "I can think clearly." For 23 minutes, Walsh's squadron flew in formation at the edge of the void, their small ships like bright needles poking at a vast dark cloud. Previous military encounters had lasted less than 5 minutes before pilots became too afraid to function. Then the void did something it had never done before. It retreated. Just a little at first, pulling back from the ships as if they caused it pain. Then, to everyone's amazement, it turned away from Mars completely and moved back toward the outer solar system. When Walsh's team returned to Earth, they were greeted as heroes. For the first time since the void had appeared, people felt a glimmer of hope. "This is just the beginning," Walsh told the cheering crowd. "We've found its weakness. Now we need to build on what we've learned." In his office, Admiral Carter was already on a call with Ambassador Zephyr. The alien's voice was filled with disbelief. "Impossible," Zephyr kept saying. "What you described is impossible." "Not impossible," Admiral Carter replied. "Just never tried before. And now we need to share this knowledge with every species in the galaxy." Ambassador Zephyr could not believe what he had seen. For thousands of years, his people and the other species of the galaxy had run from the void. They had watched worlds die. They had lived in constant fear. And now these humans, newcomers to the stars, had made the void retreat. "You must tell the other representatives," Admiral Carter said. "We need to work together." Zephyr nodded slowly. "I will arrange a meeting. But you must understand, many will not believe this is possible. Hope is a dangerous thing when you have lived in fear for so long." 3 days later, representatives from 7 alien civilizations met in secret at a base beneath the Rocky Mountains on Earth. They came in ships designed to avoid detection. They wore devices to hide their life signs. These were beings who had survived by staying hidden. Admiral Carter stood before them, his uniform crisp, his back straight. "The void feeds on fear," he said simply. "We now know this for certain. But courage hurts it. That gives us a weapon." One of the aliens, a tall, thin being with 4 arms, spoke up. "We have courage too. Do you think we have not tried to fight? Do you think we are cowards?" Dr. Samantha Daniels stepped forward. "Of course not. But human brain patterns may be different from yours. We need to study how each species experiences fear and courage. We need to adapt our technology to work for everyone." For 2 weeks, scientists from Earth worked side by side with the alien visitors. They mapped brain patterns. They modified the courage amplifiers. They created what they called the Fearless Protocol, a specialized mental training that could help any thinking being replace fear with resolve. Lieutenant Olivia Bennett was chosen to lead the first mixed-species combat team. She was young, but had impressed everyone with her quick thinking during the testing phase. Her team included 3 humans, 2 Alarians like Zephyr, a Krell warrior, and a Nexian navigator. "We train together, we fight together," Bennett told her team during their first meeting. "The Void doesn't care what planet you come from. Neither do I." As news of the Alliance spread, more alien ships began to appear near Earth. Some came to join the fight. Others came just to see the planet that had dared to stand against the Void. Earth transformed from a newcomer in galactic society to the central hub of resistance. The Void seemed to sense the growing opposition. It increased its attacks on human outposts near Jupiter and Saturn. Each attack was met by teams equipped with courage amplifiers, and each battle lasted longer than the one before. "It's learning," Dr. Peterson warned during a strategy meeting. "It's trying different approaches. We need to stay one step ahead." Maria Hernandez and her alien colleagues worked around the clock to improve their technology. The latest version of the courage amplifier was smaller, more powerful, and could be adjusted to work with any species' brain patterns. "We're not just defending anymore," Admiral Carter told the Alliance leaders. "It's time to take the fight to the Void." A fleet of 50 ships from 8 different species gathered in orbit around Earth. Each was equipped with the new technology. Each crew had gone through the Fearless Protocol training. Bennett's mixed team would lead the first strike into the Void's territory, targeting a small piece of it that had broken off from the main body. As they prepared to launch, Ambassador Zephyr approached Bennett on the landing pad. "My people have a saying," he told her. "Hope is the light that burns in darkness." Bennett smiled. "On Earth, we say courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." Zephyr made the gesture that his people use to wish good fortune. "Perhaps our peoples are not so different after all." The fleet launched the next morning, a mix of human and alien ships flying together toward the darkness that had terrorized the galaxy for so long. On every ship, crew members wore courage amplifiers and repeated their training mantras. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy was not just running away. It was fighting back. The first 3 months of the war against the Void were hard. Despite their courage amplifiers and training, the Alliance lost many ships and brave fighters. The Void adapted quickly, finding new ways to attack their minds and bodies. Earth lost its outpost on Europa. The Alarians lost a colony ship with 5,000 civilians. The Krell lost their oldest space station. But in the 4th month, something changed. The battle near Proxima Centauri should have been another defeat. The Void had surrounded a mixed fleet of 35 ships. All seemed lost. Captain Andrew Mitchell commanded the human ship U.S. Valor in that battle. His courage amplifier had been damaged, and he felt the Void's fear pressing in on his mind. But he refused to give up. "Everyone link your systems," he ordered over the fleet channel. "Focus on the same thought patterns." Together, the ships formed a tight circle and synchronized their courage amplifiers. Instead of each crew fighting alone, they joined their mental energy into one powerful signal. What happened next amazed everyone. Where their signals overlapped, the Void actually pulled back. It wasn't just retreating, it was being hurt. It's working. Mitchell shouted as he watched the void's darkness shrink away from their combined signal. Push harder. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the void had left the Proxima Centauri system completely. The Alliance had won its first real victory. Mitchell's discovery changed everything. Engineer Ryan Cooper, inspired by the battle reports, began working on what he called courage matrices, stations that could broadcast synchronized courage patterns across entire star systems. The key is the resonance effect, Cooper explained to Admiral Carter and the alien leaders. When multiple minds focus on courage in the same way at the same time, it creates a wave pattern that's toxic to the void. The Alliance built the first courage matrix on Mars. It was a massive structure with thousands of volunteers working in shifts to maintain the broadcast. When activated, it created a shield of courage that covered the entire inner solar system. For the first time, Earth felt truly safe from the void. Over the next 6 months, the Alliance built more matrices in key systems across the galaxy. With each new station, more territory became protected. The void began to retreat from these areas, pulling back to systems where no matrices had been built yet. In an incredible turn of events, Alliance forces were able to liberate 3 star systems that the void had taken over years before. On one planet, they found survivors hiding in deep underground bunkers. These people had lived in darkness and fear for a decade. When they saw the Alliance ships and felt the courage broadcasts pushing back the void, many of them cried with joy. The humans brought the light. One survivor told Ambassador Zephyr, "We had given up hope, but they showed us how to be brave again." The void's attacks became more desperate and erratic. It would surge forward with great force, then suddenly retreat. It tried to attack the matrices directly but couldn't get close enough without being hurt by their broadcasts. Admiral Carter and his alien counterparts met on the newly liberated planet of Nexus Prime to plan their next moves. "We're winning," Admiral Carter said, looking at the star map showing their progress. "For the first time in history, the void is on the defensive." The Krell general hissed in agreement. "But it is still powerful. We have pushed it back in some places, but it continues to feed on fear in others." Ambassador Zephyr studied the map thoughtfully. "We need to understand more about what the void really is, where it came from, why it exists." Lieutenant Bennett, recently promoted after several successful missions, stepped forward. "The survivors from the liberated systems all tell similar stories. They say the void seems to retreat to the same area when it's hurt, toward the galactic core." Everyone looked at the center of the map. The galactic core was a dense cluster of stars, dangerous, and largely unexplored. "That's where we need to go next," Admiral Carter said. "If the void has a heart, that's where we'll find it." The journey to the galactic core would not be easy. It was a region filled with dangers. Black holes, radiation storms, and stars packed so close together that safe navigation seemed impossible. And somewhere in that cosmic maze was the heart of the void. For weeks, scientists studied all the data they had collected about the void. They analyzed patterns of its movements, the way it retreated when hurt, and the stories from survivors who had lived near the core. "There's a pattern here," Dr. Samantha Daniels said during a meeting with Alliance leaders. "Every time the void is injured by our courage broadcasts, it pulls back toward the same coordinates in the core. I think that's where its central consciousness is located." Fleet Admiral Julia Morrison, who had taken command of the Alliance forces after Admiral Carter was injured in a battle, studied the star charts carefully. She was a tall woman with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 40 years in space and knew its dangers better than anyone. "We need a special ship," she said finally. "Something built specifically to resist the void's influence and survive the core's hazards." And so began the most ambitious engineering project in human history. The U.S. Defiance was designed with input from all 8 species in the Alliance. It had the fastest engines humans had ever built, shields developed by Krell engineers, and sensor systems from the Nexians who could see energy patterns no other species could detect. Most importantly, it had a central chamber where the entire crew could link their courage amplifiers into one powerful system. Captain Eric Summers was chosen to lead the mission. He had fought the Void in 12 battles and survived each time. His calm leadership had saved countless lives. "This may be a one-way trip," Admiral Morrison told him when she offered him command of the Defiance. "The core is dangerous, and the Void will throw everything it has at you." Summers nodded. "I understand, but someone has to try." The crew was made up entirely of volunteers, the bravest souls from each species. Human navigator Alice Weber, Alarian science officer Vex, Krell security chief Drax, and 20 others, each an expert in their field, each willing to risk everything. As the Defiance prepared for launch, thousands gathered to see it off. The ship gleamed in the sunlight, its hull marked with the symbols of all 8 Alliance species. "You carry our hopes with you," Ambassador Zephyr told the crew during the departure ceremony. "For the first time in our history, we faced the Void not with fear, but with courage." The journey to the core took 3 weeks. With each day, the stars grew thicker around them. The ship's sensors detected strange energy patterns that no one could explain. And always, they felt the Void watching them, following them. "It knows where we're going," Communications Officer Melissa Grant said one night on the bridge. "It's letting us come to it." Grant had been studying the Void's energy patterns for months. She had developed a way to translate some of its signals, though the process was still crude. "I'm picking up something strange," she said on their 20th day of travel. "It's not the usual fear pattern from the Void. It's different." For hours, Grant worked to decode the signals. When she finally succeeded, her face went pale. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, her voice shaking slightly. Summers looked at her translation on the screen. The message was broken and incomplete, but clear enough to understand. "Was not always. Darkness. Once we were. Light. Ancient fear corrupted. Trapped. Feeding. Cannot stop." "What does this mean?" asked Science Officer Vex. "It means," Summers said slowly, "that the Void wasn't always what it is now. It was something else, something that was changed by fear." The crew fell silent as they considered this. They had come prepared to destroy the Void. Now they had to face a new possibility, that it might not need to be destroyed at all, but transformed. As they approached the coordinates of the Void's heart, the darkness ahead of them seemed to pulse like a living thing. The Defiance moved forward, carrying its cargo of courage into the center of the galaxy's oldest fear. The U.S. Defiance reached the center of the galactic core 3 days later. The darkness was so thick here that the stars were barely visible. The Void surrounded them completely. "All stations report," Captain Summers ordered, his voice steady despite the pressure they all felt. One by one, the crew confirmed their systems were working. The courage amplifiers were at full power, creating a bubble of protection around the ship. But everyone could feel the Void pressing against it, searching for weaknesses. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive energy concentration 2 million kilometers ahead," Science Officer Vex reported. "It appears to be the center of the Void." Summers nodded. "Take us in, slow approach." As they moved closer, the pressure from the Void increased. Several crew members reported headaches. The ship's power systems flickered. The courage amplifiers were working harder than ever before. Chief Science Officer Paul Barrett studied the readings from his station. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke unless he had something important to say. Now he turned to Summers with an intense expression. "Captain, I think I understand what's happening. The Void isn't just feeding on fear. It's trapped in a cycle. It causes fear, feeds on it, grows stronger, causes more fear. It can't break free." "Can we help it break the cycle?" Summers asked. Barrett nodded slowly. "Maybe. If I reconfigure our courage matrices into what I'll call a resonance purifier, We might be able to disrupt the cycle long enough for whatever is inside the void to reset. Do it, Summers ordered. Barrett worked quickly, his fingers flying over the controls. Meanwhile, the void's attacks grew stronger. The ship shuddered as waves of darkness crashed against their shields. "We're losing power in sections 3 through 7, reported the Krell security chief Drax. The courage amplifiers are failing. Communications with the fleet were lost. They were alone in the heart of darkness, their mission falling apart around them. Summers looked at his crew, humans and aliens working side by side, all fighting their own fear while trying to save the galaxy. They had come too far to fail now. "I have an idea," he said. "Barrett, can you connect the main broadcast system directly to my neural implant?" Barrett looked shocked. "That would expose your mind directly to the void. The pain would be unbearable." "We don't have a choice," Summers replied. "Do it." Reluctantly, Barrett made the connections. Summers sat in the captain's chair, electrodes attached to his temples. "Everyone who can, join with me," Summers said. "Focus not just on courage, but on understanding and empathy. The void was something else once. Let's help it remember." One by one, the crew linked their minds to his, human and alien. They joined together in a unique mental bond. Instead of fighting the void, they opened themselves to it, trying to reach whatever was trapped inside. The pain was immediate and intense. Summers felt like his mind was being torn apart, but he held on to one thought. There is something inside worth saving. The ship began to break apart around them. Systems failed. The hull cracked. They were running out of time. "Broadcast now," Summers ordered through clenched teeth. Barrett activated the resonance purifier. A wave of energy burst from the ship, rippling through the void like a stone dropped in a pond. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the void began to change. The oppressive darkness lightened slightly. The attack on the ship stopped. And suddenly, there was a presence in Summers' mind. Not the crushing fear of before, but something ancient and aware. Confused, hurting, lost. "Who? What are you?" Summers asked mentally. The presence seemed to study him, study all of them. Then it responded, not in words, but in images and feelings. It showed them what it had once been. A guardian of life, a protector of the galaxy. How an ancient war had wounded it, trapped it in fear and pain. How it had been feeding on fear for millions of years, unable to stop, unable to heal. The ship gave a final shudder. Alarms blared as life support began to fail. They had only minutes left. "We can help you," Summers projected to the entity. "But you have to help us too. Stop feeding on fear. Remember what you were." There was a long pause. The darkness around them swirled and shifted. Then, just as the last systems failed, the entity responded. The void changed. 3 weeks after the U.S. Defiance disappeared into the galactic core, Fleet Admiral Julia Morrison stood on the bridge of her flagship. The mood across the Alliance was grim. They had lost contact with the Defiance. No one expected to see the brave crew again. "Admiral, we're detecting a ship approaching from the core region," reported her sensor officer suddenly. Morrison straightened. "Is it the void?" "No, Ma'am. It's the Defiance. But something's different about it." On the main screen, the Defiance appeared. The ship was changed. Its hull, once silver, now seemed to glow with a soft blue light. And surrounding it was what looked like a cloud of gentle luminescence instead of the terrible darkness of the void. "Open a channel," Morrison ordered, her voice tight with emotion. Captain Summers appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but his eyes were bright with something Morrison had never seen before. "A deep peace." "Captain, report. What happened? Where is the void?" Summers smiled slightly. "The void is gone, Admiral. Or rather, it has transformed. It calls itself the Harmony now." Over the next few days, Summers and his crew told their incredible story. How they had made contact with the entity trapped inside the void. how it had been a guardian of life until ancient fear had corrupted it, how their combined courage and empathy had helped it remember its true nature. It was trapped in a cycle of feeding on fear. Summers explained during a meeting with Alliance leaders. Our resonance purifier gave it a chance to break free. The entity now calling itself, the Harmony, began to help restore the planets it had once destroyed. On worlds that had been in darkness for centuries, light returned. Life began to grow again. Humans became celebrated throughout the galaxy. They were the species that hadn't just fought the darkness, they had transformed it. Stories spread from world to world about the courage of Earth's people, who had seen fear not as something to run from, but as something to understand and overcome. Dr. Samantha Daniels started a new field of study called consciousness transformation. Scientists from all species came to Earth to learn from her. What happened with the void changes everything we thought we knew about consciousness, she told her students. Energy, matter, thought. They're all connected in ways we're just beginning to understand. The alliance of 8 species became a permanent galactic union, with Earth as a founding member. Admiral Morrison established a new fleet with a primary mission of exploration rather than defense. "We've spent enough time being afraid," she said at the launching ceremony. "Now it's time to be curious again." Captain Noah Garcia, who had discovered the first warning about the void all those months ago, was given command of a new ship. The U.S. Explorer was the first vessel designed for peaceful exploration into parts of the galaxy that had been unreachable before. On the day before his first mission, Garcia stood at a window in Earth's space station, looking out at the stars. So much had changed. A year ago, Earth had barely known about alien life. Now they were part of a thriving galactic community. The darkness that had threatened everything was gone, replaced by a new guardian. Ambassador Zephyr joined him at the window. "Your people did what no one thought was possible," the alien said. "You saw a monster, and instead of just trying to kill it, you helped it heal." Garcia nodded. "That's what humans do at their best. We don't just fight what we fear. We try to understand it." "Where will you go first?" Zephyr asked, gesturing to the Explorer docked nearby. "Everywhere," Garcia replied with a smile. "The Harmony has opened paths through the core that were blocked before. We can reach parts of the galaxy no one has ever seen." As the Explorer launched the next day, Garcia looked at his crew, a mix of humans and aliens working together. He thought about how humanity's greatest strength hadn't been its technology or even its courage, but its capacity to understand and transform fear into hope. The Explorer accelerated toward the stars, carrying that hope into the future of a galaxy no longer living in fear.